Hi everyone, and welcome back to Ideanthro. Coming to you today from Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and coming to you with a guest, Lot Locher.
Yeah, you're saying it extremely well.
That's only because I've had like 4 attempts now as we've tried to record this video. So Lot works for Amsterdam Rainproof, which is, like, in my terminology, in Australian terminology, I think it's a capacity building organisation in the broadest sense of that term. So not only are you doing like knowledge building work, but it's awareness, it's enabling policy, it's working with all sorts of stakeholders to deliver water sense of urban design / SUD / LID, depending on where in the world we are. And I'll let you touch on the appropriate Dutch terminology. And so this conversation, Lot's going to tell us a little bit about what Amsterdam Rainproof is, and then we're going to talk about 2 particular topics that we've talked about today. One of which is how Amsterdam Rainproof works with existing private landholders to try and get these sorts of practices onto existing private property, and then how you work with the existing public domain, the roads and the other public spaces, because these are the 2, in the Australian context, the 2 untouched elements of the city. We're doing okay with, new development, but those 2 aspects, not so good. So I'm keen to learn a little bit about the Dutch experience, the Amsterdam experience.
These are also the difficult ones.
They are the difficult. Oh yeah, and that's the reason why we haven't touched them in the Australian context. We went for the easy one first, right?
And it's not even that easy, I have to say. Not here either.
No, it's not. Okay, Lot, can you give us a little bit of context about Amsterdam Rainproof to start with?
Yeah. So Amsterdam Rainproof is a network organization.
Okay.
It's a new, different way of doing government. Waternet, it's an initiative of Waternet. Waternet is the water cycle company of Amsterdam, responsible for sewage, surface water, drinking water, groundwater issues, sewage treatment plants. And they themselves had been working on making the city climate adapted for cloudburst already for a while in pilots, different pilots, but they didn't get it further. They managed to get it just into their own sector. Yeah,
so there were some example projects, but it's not been picked up wide.
No. So in the start of 2014, they set up a dedicated team with different, with an interdisciplinary team outside their own organization. It's people from backgrounds with not only the water background, but the design background, the communication, economy background. From both the public experience and a private sector experience. And set in the main team and said, your main goal is to make Amsterdam Rainproof in 2050. So not now immediately, but slowly, every time that the city transforms, the physical transformation of the city, take into account these cloudburst events and take into account what to do with the cloudburst events.
And that was the theme that we've talked about, is piggybacking off it's not trying to go, let's just change the whole city. It's going, we are already doing road upgrade, or we're already doing building in a backyard, already doing this. How do we piggyback on it?
So when a private a private owner of a house changes his roof, what can he do to make it more rainproof? When he changes his garden, what can he do? But also, of course, when the public sector changes the road or does bigger maintenance work on the road, what can they do? And of course, also when you do a whole new development, we do that as well. Looking into which policies are required in order to get it on the ground.
Okay. Why don't we tackle the first of the 2 challenging topics, the private, helping private landholders to be more water sensitive or rainproof on their properties. What angle do you take with that? Yeah,
so when we started the program, we did a stakeholder analysis, and we looked at who are the big groups involved in transforming this physical city. And we found out, of course, that a big chunk of the city is owned in private hands. We have a huge chunk which is owned by the housing association, and a huge chunk which is owned in private landlords, own house owners, people like you and me. And we thought, how can we reach all them? Do we go, to every 800,000 citizens? Or do we want to, target in a more strategic way, in a more wider approach? And we said, definitely for the private house owners, we don't do just a communication program from the government. We actually say, we look at the intermediates. Who are they going to when they need advice when they change their roof? Who are they going to when they need advice? Where do they buy their products for the gardens? Where do they go? From who do they get advice when a cloudburst happens and they get damage? So they go to the insurance companies. So we targeted these intermediate groups. And intermediate groups which we see for the private house owners are garden centers, so the shops. The landscape architects and garden architects, so the horticulturalists, who are sometimes working on gardens. Quite often the owner does it themselves. The people who are changing their wiring, the engineers, and the pumping and things like that. What are they called
like
again?
Plumbers.
Thanks.
And,
plumbers.
Yep.
Very easy word. The plumbers, and of course insurance companies, because they claim when they have damage from rainwater, they don't go to the government. They go to insurance companies.
Yes.
So these are a bit different target groups, and we have other ones as well. Product developers, product different.
Yeah. Okay. And so you mentioned to me off camera, like we're talking about the example of the garden centres. So Amsterdam Rainproof approached like the overarching body of garden centres.
Yeah,
and
because in Amsterdam we have of course we have many small garden centre shops, and we have a couple of bigger ones. And then we thought, like, are we approaching them all one by one? And what helps is actually going via their branch organization, which is a national organization. With them we said, like, okay, what do they need? What does the shop need and people in the shop need in order to bring this theme further, to bring awareness to the shop people, and through them awareness to their clients and sell things. So we managed to get it into the strategy of the garden branch that every year, twice, there's a week where the water sensitive garden is on display in the shop, and there's special attention on it. There's special workshops for also for children, so education, but then for clients. There's sometimes in certain shops can give discounts on products.
Yes.
There's a display and things like that. And what we did is we give workshops in order to do capacity building to the people on the shop floor.
Yes.
We made products with tips, like what can you do in order to make a water sensitive rainproof garden.
Yep.
And in such a sense we are trying to help them to bring it further.
Yeah, because there's mutual benefit here, right? So it's good for the garden centre because it's a different reason for people to buy these particular products. It might be additional different product ranges they can carry.
Yeah, and they come to the garden centre suddenly again, and they don't buy it from the internet.
Yes.
So there is the competition with internet, they can bring value to their centres with their knowledge again.
Yes, yeah, because the centre's not just selling the product, but it's the value add of here is this particular knowledge. Yeah. So that makes sense. That ties together nicely. And thinking about, I could see that working well in the Australian context because there's already a recognition. You can already go to garden centres and see elements of this, but I could see it being picked up really well because of that synergy, that mutual benefit. And what I know of the largest chains in Australia, I could see them looking at that and going, yep, that makes sense. That fits with our portrayal of being community minded, of helping the community. Yeah. I could see them going, yeah, that works for us.
And fits with their new business.
Exactly. So, okay. So that's an example of, I suppose, working with the garden centres. Insurance industry was something else we've talked about here. A little trickier.
Absolutely.
But potentially benefits as well. So
yeah, and benefits for both. For us, it was beneficial. We noticed we had a cloudburst event on the 28th of July 2014.
Okay.
And there were a lot of calls coming to Waternet and to the fire department.
Yep.
But we knew the amount of times that there had been a certain damage, but we didn't know the value of the damage, the financial value.
Yeah.
And so the politician asked us, so how much was this? And so how beneficial is it that you are going to take all these measures?
Yeah.
And then so we approached the insurance companies to see if we could get their claims, the value of their claims. And that was rather tricky because actually the water damage is also involving if a waterbed is punctured. So in order to take the rain part out of it, it was really tricky.
Okay.
But we found, and we started to work with the biggest insurance company, Achmea, in the Netherlands, and doing a project to see like how we can benefit from each other, to exchange data to a certain degree, and to see like what they could do in order to make their client more resilient, and what we could, how we could learn from their data in order to also communicate more specific to the people who live there.
Yeah, so this is again on this theme of being mutually beneficial. It's beneficial obviously for Amsterdam Rainproof to be able to work with the insurance companies, because the insurance companies are the ones who pay out after flooding. They
are the ones who communicate to them.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they bring in, they are actually the ones who are employing the people who fix the house after the damage has occurred.
Yep.
So you can fix it in the same state that it was before, or you can fix it even better that the next time it doesn't happen.
Exactly, and that's where the benefit comes back for the insurance company, because for them, they don't actually, like, although their business is insuring people, they don't want to pay out on insurance. So anything that they can do to reduce that.
Yeah, and they're trying to find a different service as well again. with being more valuable to their customer, with pre-advice and not only after an event. So for them, it was also a change of their business again.
Yeah. So I think there's two key themes I've taken away from this discussion is one, working with intermediaries. So it's already it's not the case that the government coming in and saying, hey, we think you should do it like this, but it's the case of the residents has potentially already gone and is already going to go and speak to these groups, and so it's much more of a two-way conversation there. So theme one is working with intermediaries who the landholder's already talking to and already has a relationship with, and then the second theme is mutually beneficial. So whoever those intermediaries are, finding where the mutual benefit is between Amsterdam Rainproof and the garden centre or the insurance company
So we don't say you have to do this, you have to. We see like, okay, what can we do together and how can we help you to do your thing better and that it helps us a bit. And then we have our slogan, every drop counts. So it's every little step helps in that sense.
I like it. Okay.
Can I name another couple of intermediaries without going into it?
Absolutely.
So the housing association is an important one for the people who rent, because we have 60% of people who rent in Amsterdam, and they communicate directly with them. So that's a really important one, which is another tricky one.
So when you say just so that I understand, when you say housing, is this the association? This isn't the association who builds houses. No. This is the association who. Oh, they do a little, maybe?
They used to also build houses, but their main task is maintaining the social housing sector. So they own the property and they maintain the property of the housing association property.
Is this a private entity or is this another public entity?
It used to be public and became privatized.
So that was one of them. So the housing sector. What's
the other one is with communication. We don't communicate. We do communicate sometimes directly with certain events or certain letters, which piggyback again on the tax registration. But we have found out that to communicate and to do events, communication awareness events, is much better if you do that with other groups who are much better in event communication or who have a different theme. And the third one is these community groups. So within the urban, the neighborhoods, there are always people who are really active in their neighborhood with elements.
And maybe it's not about water, it could be about anything.
It could be about anything. It's easier if it is related to the physical domain, so if it is about sustainability or about play or about so if it is about like the elderly who are staying at home, it's a bit more tricky to piggyback on it, but we try to see like where can we meet each other, and because they know exactly what is happening in their neighborhood, they know how to talk the language of the people on the street, so we really see how we can work together and help them to make their message and our message stronger.
How do you make the first approach? So say you've sat down, you've identified a group that you want to go and talk to. How do you make the first approach? We have a community manager for that.
We literally, it's a very important role in our team. We are all community managers, we all know how to network, and we are really, that's our main job, to find and to see like how to work. But this community manager is specific also to these ones, and she did a whole stakeholder analysis of all these groups, and then she saw through another group who had already contact, and she went there and just talked about the different things, like what do you need, what do we need, and are there immediate actions. So what we always try wherever we go, we talk, we see where we can meet each other, but we also put it immediately into an action, so that there is a physical result. And the physical result can be an event, or it can be a folder, it can be something, but it shouldn't stay just in, we had such a nice chat together.
So there's an outcome from it rather. Maybe physical result's not the right. There's an outcome.
No,
I can see where you're going with that. Is there anything else we should touch off on the discussion of the private space before we go?
Maybe the water label element of it. There's of course a whole awareness element to it. And in the Netherlands, different municipalities and private companies are developing a water label, which is linked to your plot, so to your house. And in that, you can type it, it's on the internet, so you type in we have a house code, our postcode is actually linked to our house. And then you can see if they have done it with GIS analysis, what type of house you have and what kind of label you have. And then immediately, if you have a label A, you're really good, and if they're still thinking how to do this. But that's the idea.
So it's not up and running yet, but
they're in pilots.
In
many areas it's already up and running, but they're still changing the communication part of it. But the whole idea is that you can see like how good you are, but then also how you can make it better. So they immediately give you tips, like this is what you can do to make your house better, rainproof, or
And so I mean, I could see how that could be really easily piggybacked off existing stuff in Australia, because councils, for example, like Brisbane City Council has its flood-wise mapping, so you can go onto your particular property in Brisbane and you can see, is it flood affected, and if it is, what are the map flood levels in different events and the like. The underlying infrastructure's there to then essentially go, okay, how do we calculate a rating for the other elements, not just
not
how
flooding,
flood resilient you are, but water quality or even urban heat island or all sorts of stuff.
And immediately also not only show the urgency, but always say what they can do and show them where they can do it.
Yeah. So it's not just a case of we're screwed, but it's it's not so good, but here's some options.
And our communication is always, okay, this is going to be this urgent. It's urgent in your own area, your own house, your own garden, or whoever you talk to. You can do something, and this is what you can do.
Yes. Yep. I got it. Okay. Let's go public domain now. So this is another challenge. I recently did a little bit of work for a local government in southeast Queensland, where we actually sat down and went, okay, look, it makes sense that we've gone and focused on the new development for this time, for the various reasons it is the easier of the three. But if we actually look down and see how much of the city is in private ownership already, and how much of the city is already, for example, in road reserves, which in the case of this local government was about a third of the city. Okay, how are we going to deal with that? Because those road reserves, they don't redevelop the way private land redevelops. They might get renewed at some point, but it's renewed by the local government. How do we go and approach that? So what's the Amsterdam approach to that be?
That's it's not a tricky one. It sounds of course easy because you are from the government to do that, but there are all different sectors involved and all different people and all different budgets and silos. It's actually really siloed in there. And water flows freely, and it should flow from one budget to the other, but it actually doesn't. So in order to pinpoint through these silos is rather tricky. In Amsterdam, if you look at the physical city and the transformation of the city, in 50 years the whole city somebody has dug into the ground for sewage renewal in once in 50, 40 years, but every road goes through a higher maintenance regime in 1 in 15 years. So there are physical transformations where you can lift on. Of course, there's not so much big budget on it, or there are different things.
So it's coming back to this theme of piggybacking on.
Exactly. And how do you, and we call that kind of, you need to mainstream it into their work element, their work process. So what we did, we analyzed the different I call it physical transformation processes, so a renewal process or a new built area process or a bigger maintenance process. And then we checked who is the client, what is happening, what is every step doing, literally a step, and who's involved and what kind of policies are involved, and pinpointing in there. And then we checked if we could get into when is this policy being renewed, or is there an element to be put into the policy on policy level. With regards to the people, who is really, which sector is doing what, and where can we talk, see with them, and that they can change it, that they also look at this.
So it's in the first instance about understanding what's actually, how does it actually work at the moment? Because it's not as simple as we dig up a road and replace it.
There's a whole process going before that is happening till after that's happening, and there's all kind of policies and guidelines which are making it that it has to be happening that way. So we're constantly trying to piggyback on that and trying to link that through. So that is one part of it, and then the other part is actually creating this awareness, and therefore we made these stress tests. And a stress test is a kind of a computer animated, simulated modeling of, say, we have Amsterdam, we let a cloudburst, really fast, hard cloudburst run for 1 hour, 2 hours over the city. It's a dynamic modeling with the sewage system involved, it's all computer generated, and then it shows where the water goes on the street and which streets and which properties get flooded. And then we link that to our knowledge of functions. We call that kind of fact sheets of functioning stress tests, is there a hospital, is there things. And there we got the wet spots from. And this is awareness from, these are the areas where we really have to, we can't just piggyback, we have to increase the speed of our of tackling this.
So they might be the areas that you might go into in their own right.
Absolutely, or we actually, after we had done say that we have 95 wet spots in Amsterdam, some small, some huge, some extremely urgent, highly urgent, because all are urgent, but then we checked what is the planning of the city. who is working where, doing what, and can we actually look? Are they already working in these areas, and can we then target that? So because of course the city has a plan already for a couple of years, so they know what they're opening up, and they can't go open up everything, not because of money, but also because of that they don't have all the roads to go into the city, so the city stops working.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so there's almost two angles into this. There's the angle of just generally, what are the general processes of how development is already happening in the city, and how do we put it into the policy so that it generally happens, but then a more targeted approach of, we've got some particular areas that are higher priorities.
Yeah.
What specifically is about to be done in those?
Yeah.
Let's go talk directly about
yeah.
those projects and how to.
And can we get, and for these specifically, we can get then hopefully additional funding, and we have and then the ones which aren't planned from these, we try to pull forward.
Okay.
Saying okay, but this one is the highly urgent. It's not on planning. It has been done 20 years ago maybe. Pull it forward so we can.
Yeah. And is there any to what? So one of the concerns or criticisms that might be raised in this space in Australia when we talk about this is immediately okay, I was going to build my road, and it's all well and good. I get that we could put in a bioretention system or a swale or something else for benefits here, but it's going to cost X dollars more. Do you take is this an approach driven by? So I've wondered about do we approach this from a case of maybe ideally we want a bioretention system here, but that's going to be quite expensive, so we'll settle for the swale that is very little additional cost. Is there any of that thinking, or is it just a case of, hey, look, what has to happen here to fix this problem is this, and we're finding a way to do it? Is there any?
I wish that last one was true.
Okay.
That would be the benefit, but of course that's not the reality.
Okay.
There's a whole debate about the additional costs.
Okay.
Because we piggyback very often, and not talking about these ones which you pull completely forward, but the ones you piggyback, the additional cost is not extremely high.
Yes.
Compared to if you would do it all on your own, and things like that, or if the urgency is so big. But there is an additional cost. So we're also doing a whole research in what citywide would be the additional cost from now till 2050, and how often does a cloudburst, with knowing or having simulated what kind of financial damage you would have with a cloudburst, how much often do you have it in order to to kind of the cost benefit analysis, things like that. But we also, so that's one thing on cost benefit, but there's also the whole thing of where does this money come from, and where is the additional cost coming from? And can we link it to other benefits? So in sense of for instance, maybe the cost of a very hard infrastructural measure is cheaper than the cost of a green area, say. It's not normally it's not the case, but in maintenance or something. But then the greening area or the swale bioretention has a benefit to other things.
Yes.
So we try to see can we then link that, or what is the thing? But of course, there's not always not enough money. And the money is the big issue and not only on investment, but mainly the whole life cycle cost with the maintenance areas.
Yes.
So if it is a green area, who is actually doing the maintenance and who's paying for the maintenance? Is it the maintenance area from the city with the green, or is it from Waternet?
And this is one thought that people in some that's really coming to the fore in Australia now, is people sitting down and going, okay, we get that we can afford to maintain one bioretention system or 5 or 10, but when we scale this up across the whole city, it suddenly gets really, really scary really quickly. So people have started to put a fair bit of thought into this concept of zero additional maintenance. WUSIT. One council in particular in Melbourne, Manningham City Council, they coined that term, but essentially that's going and saying, okay, we want to put it's most commonly been done for bioretention systems, we want to put a bioretention system here. It would have been like this, so it would have been grass. Well, can we build a bioretention system here that has no more maintenance than that grassed area would have? So, because a lot of our default in the past have been, it's bioretention, so we should put in some emergent plants, we should put in some lomandras and all this stuff. But it's actually
much nicer looking as well.
Yeah, it looks nice. But scaling up across the city, maybe what we need to do is go, how do we just make that
And what we actually, there's another thing, an element which we, a step in between which we do, which really helps us with trying to get the cost down, is that we have this analysis for wet spots.
Okay.
Over the city, the stress test, the water in the areas. And then normally when you do a project is never, the whole water area. It's quite often only a certain street and water runs in from other things.
Yes.
So we have looked at, we call it we took the example from Copenhagen. It's cloud, and it was actually developed at the same time here. Okay. But then they looked at each other. We looked at the Copenhagen. Like, that's actually really brilliant what they do. We call it cloudburst plans for certain areas.
Okay. And
we make a plan of the wish list or the wish imagery vision. What this area should look like, if it would be perfect for a rainproof area. Which street should be a cloudburst boulevard? Kind of where was the running through? Which street should be one like we just saw where water is retained?
Yep.
Which area? So that at least when you take a project, you always know if the water is running, coming from where, and how it works.
Yep.
And then, if you look at that, you notice that actually quite often the measure is just a threshold, a road threshold for the cars, and the what are they called? The bumps. For speeding bumps.
Yeah.
By putting them in a different location, you already move the water in a different area.
Yeah, okay.
So sometimes it's not even about beautiful greening and other elements. It's just literally putting, where is the height of the road and where is it sitting and where does the water run through.
Yes.
And can we lower that tiny element of the edge of near the canal so that the water runs in that.
Yep.
And then the costs are not so.
Yeah. So it's the fine details. Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay, so so we've talked Amsterdam Rainproof, we've talked private, we've talked public. Is there anything in the public space that we've missed here?
There's of course all the details, because it is tricky. The public one, we have one person. Actually, we have two people who are completely involved just to see like in all this mainstreaming in the public. Who do we need? Where do we need to get it in? How do we do that?
Yep.
And constantly keeping that up to date.
Yep.
And that's partly capacity building, partly writing it policies, keeping it into the policies, and partly seeing where things pop up which suddenly starts to change the city.
Yeah.
A new development area, or not always new development, but a development in the city where suddenly
something that wasn't expected.
Yeah, and the whole reorganization of a city development. And these kind of things. So it is a real hard job to get it going.
Yep. Okay. Well, thank you. It's really nice for me to be able to sit down and talk about these two different elements, the kind of the overlooked elements in the Australian context. I really appreciate you taking the time to have a chat. I'm definitely the private space in particular. I've got some thoughts that I'm keen to take home from there. So that's really good. So, Lot, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking me out and about and showing me some stuff today.
Yeah.
And hopefully I'll see you again soon.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cheers.
Yeah.